to week 3. This is formatting. So the first exercise, what I'm going to ask you to do is come into this tab, and you're going to be doing all of your work in cells B2 through E30, which I've highlighted here on the screen. Your task this week is to create or basically duplicate what you see off to the right. Now, if you've never sort of done any of this formatting up here at the top, and we're going to go through this in a minute, then this is going to take you a little bit of time. Okay, it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of get used to these menu options and sort of, how you can kind of center and merge data and that kind of thing. If you have done this before, then this might take a little bit shorter. But the idea here is to format data in a presentable manner, and I'm giving you something that's very kind of relatable, which is a receipt, a store receipt. So I have the picture here just so you can kind of get a sense of because I do want to kind of emphasize that in real life we have these examples of data that is organized in a way that we can easily and quickly kind of scan it and sort of eyeball what's happening. So this is obviously the company's Walmart, right? And we have a few items here shown on the receipt, but we also have some key information up here like the phone number of the store, the manager name, the address, etc. We've also got the list of items along with the cost, and obviously like these are some what are called SKU numbers, meaning unique IDs that are specific to things like bread or peanut butter, etc. Things you might find in a Walmart. And then we have a subtotal, we've got some sales tax going on, and then we have a total. Now, in order to do this work, what I'm going to ask you guys to do is pay attention to these tasks here. This is kind of the work that you have to do. You need to go through each of these tasks and do them. So for instance, merge and center cells C3 to D3. Okay, so that's these two cells here. Now I'm going to run through this and show you what I mean and how kind of this exercise fits together. So the merge and center is this button here. I'm going to click it, and you're going to notice that what was once 2 cells is now 1 cell. And I can put the word Walmart into here, and I can bold it, and I can also shade it using what's called the cell fill option up here. And I'm going to shade it this light green. So what I've just done is I've kind of effectuated this top header of Walmart right there. Now, as you can see, what I just did are these 3 steps here. And what I have is a little diagnostic, and I'm going to check my work, and you're going to notice that you get credit for the things that you've done. So what you want to do is you want to aim down here to get up to 36 points. Okay, and this is really just to kind of help you step through the work. I did the Walmart header. I'm going to do the same thing here, except what I'm going to do is I'm going to type my information in first, and I'm going to show you how even when you type it in first, you can still do this merge and center, and it's going to merge the cells. And notice the purpose of the merge is really just to center that data, the kind of the top data at the top of the receipt, above the data of the the items being purchased. So let me actually just type this in here. I'm going to kind of just go through this. You can see some of this is just straight up data entry. So I want you to take your time with that as well. Mind the details, Okay, I'm going to merge that. Now, I'm going to show you another little trick here. This paintbrush over here is called a formatting tool. What you can do is you can copy formatting, including a merged effect, from one cell to the next. So I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to click on the cell down below, and it copies the kind of centered merged effect. So that's a little shortcut you can use. I use this little paintbrush all the time. It's a real efficiency tool. Okay, now, as you start to put in the data, what I want you to do is I want to make sure that you go over here. You say, okay, row 11 is where I start to input bread. Come over to row 11, and that'll be my first item of bread. And actually, I'm realizing that up here, so notice what I did here. I actually made a mistake, but I'm kind of glad this happened. I started inputting my phone number in row 7, but what I really need to do is do it in row 6. Now, what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to unwind a little bit of what I just did. So when you go to change a merge cell, you pretty much usually need to unmerge it. But what you can do is, I'm going to show you another little trick. I'm going to do edit, copy. I'm going to paste it up here, okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to remerge, and I'll format that down, okay? So again, these mistakes happen. They are part of working in Excel, and knowing how to kind of unwind or go back will help you. Now, if you notice, now I do have the space that I was expecting to see in between the subheader and the data. So let me keep on going. Let me just enter this in. Okay, so now I've got a few rows of data. And notice that my numbers do not have a dollar sign. So that's where we want the formatting. So the formatting is there are a couple ways we can do about it. We can come up to here, do format cells, and then we can come to number and we get all these different formatting options. Okay, so this is one way you could do it. I like to do accounting because it's a nice way of presenting the data. So this is one option. The other thing you can do, and this is what I tend to do most of the time, is Excel knows that we use these formatting options quite frequently. You can come up here and you've got the shortcut right there. Okay, so you notice you got dollar signs left aligned and then the numbers. And it's a nice look. It's very clean and kind of a standardized look. You definitely want the dollar signs. This is not just formatting, it's also informational. So it's very, very important to have all the information in there as part of this work. So I'm going to check my work. You notice I've got a lot more OKs here. Let's see, I'm getting a diagnostic. Oh, I didn't shade this, so let me go ahead and shade it. And I'll come back over here, check my work, and that clicks to OK. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of my data entry. So now I've got the rest of my data inputted in, and now I need to do this bottom part of the receipt where I've got a subtotal. I've got my tax, and I've got the number of items sold. And let me make sure I'm in the right row here. I've got a total here, and I've got number of items sold. Okay, now, first of all, I want to point out that we've got a whole chunk of data here. We're going to have a subtotal. We're going to be doing some math here. So one thing I want to do is I want to kind of separate the bottom of my data set with the subtotal and additional math that's going to follow. So what I want to do is I want to have this nice line at the bottom, and that's where I'm going to come up here to the borders. You can choose a bottom border. That's what you should choose for this. And if you notice, I now have a line here. Okay. I should also point out, and I'll just point out kind of for your benefit, that when you take the grid lines off, that border shows up even more. So it's a really nice look. You can kind of toggle grid lines on and off. I'm having the grid lines on just for this demo and for your exercise, just to enable you to kind of get used to the worksheet format. So now let's look at the subtotal. Let's look at another formula we can learn. Now in the last week we learned about the plus sign. So we could go through and do something like this. We need to add up all these items, right? Well, this is actually taking me too long. I don't like having to type in all of these cells. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the sum formula, equals the word sum, and then open parentheses. And then what we can do is we can click on all of these cells, close parentheses, and it sums up the entire cost. Okay? So that's a very important formula. You're going to use that over and over again if you haven't already used it already. Okay, another thing I want to point out, let's do 6.25% tax. I chose 6.25 and not the tax rate in the receipt because we're in New Jersey, so I figured let's use the New Jersey rate. Now, 6.25, let's see what happens when I do equals the price times my tax rate. Well, of course, this tax doesn't make sense, right? $287 in tax on a $46 bill. And that's, of course, because we're multiplying this subtotal times actually 6.25. What we really want is the percentage. So there's a couple things we can do. Number one, we can come up here and format this for percentage. And if you notice, Excel reads our previous input, 6.25, as 625%. Now, why does it do that? Well, let's go back and look at our inputs. The reason is that this is literally the number 6 plus 25%. Okay, so if we really wanted to write 6.25%, we would do something like this. This is the sort of decimal equivalent of 6.25. If I do that, you can see my tax updates appropriately. This is a much more appropriate amount of tax on a $46 bill. And now what I can do is I can come up here to the percentage and I get the 6%. And what I want to do is I want to actually show that 0.25 as well. So I'm going to extend my decimals to 2-point precision and I get the 6.25%. Okay. By the way, if you had kept this like this, if you had kept it that way, you could just, of course, have just retyped 6.25, and that would have solved that issue as well. Okay, now I want to sum up my subtotal plus my tax to get my $48.92. That's my total bill. And I want to then also add a border to each of these line items just to set them off. Each of them is important, and of course, each of them also has a dollar sign. Now, the final thing I want to do here is I want to count the number of items sold. I want to know how many items did I actually sell, because that's often, that can be an interesting kind of metric, and you can see down here at the bottom of this receipt, it's included on the Walmart receipt. I can come down here and I can physically count them and eyeball it, but I'm probably going to make a mistake because I'm tired. It's the end of the day. And I don't want to rely on counting something. What if my list was 1,000 grocery items? That's just too many. So I'm going to do what's called the count A formula. And what we can do here is we can actually have Excel count the number of items in this list. And it does just that. So this is how we can get this whole receipt formatted. Let me check my work over here. And I am seeing that I have issues in rows 13, 14, 15, and 16. So let me check that over here. So that's rows 13, 14, 15, and 16. Let me see what's going on there. 384, N. It's probably in this code here, 007. Oh, it is. So what I did was I actually had 00797. It should have been 00787 for the peanut butter. Let me see if that solves it. I'm going to come back over here and it does. So now that solved it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this down because it's the same SKU code for each. And now I have OKs all the way down and I have my full 36 points.